So I've done my research. I know I'm going to head out to Rattlesnake Pass in the Tucson Mountains. I've got my maps. I've got my information about the pigments here. And so let's head out. Let's go hunt for some wild pigments. So here we are at the Rattlesnake Pass, and you can see the hills are really red. And so we're going to head out. Being careful, the road is really busy. This is where Silver Bell Road turns into Twin Peaks Road. So I can hear a rock wren right now, and let's go exploring. You see how red the rocks are. And what I'm looking at here is a drainage, a cutaway right by the road. And these often are really great spots to find well sifted soil. And like this right here is a really good example. You can see it leaves a nice reddish color on my hand. So lots of oxides in that. And if I get that a little wet, sometimes that's a good way to tell just how good the color is here. So you can see here, I've collected these clods. So they're from a rain event a while ago, and they're little clods of mud that have dried, and they have really good potential for being made into, ground down into pigment and made into paint. So I'm excited about that. All right, I'm back in my studio, and let's take a look at what we've got to work with. So here's the first collection I made on the road cut. And now that I have it here in less harsh light, I can see this is a little lighter than the clumps that I picked up right up the cut under the tree. These are going to be a bit more promising, I think, and we'll process these separately and then test them. It's the same soil, but with different oxidation levels, heat exposure, they may end up a little bit different. And then these are rocks that I picked up that had dropped down from those dark hills above. You can see how some of them are really, really dark red. These might process out from my crusher into more of my purple, the Tucson Mountains purple, which is one of my favorite pigments that I collected further south along the road to Gates Pass. And it processes out into an amazing true purple ochre, which is one of my favorite paints. I use it frequently, augmented with a little burnt sienna to make really great desert rocks. You can see here some of the many samples and bits and pieces I collect wherever we travel. And over here is some of the pigment that I've processed. So I have Burnt Mountain there from Namibia, Chiricahua ochre, which turned out beautiful orange. Back in the back, my Painted Desert, which kind of started this whole thing. I collected from road cuts the 3 colors of the Painted Desert. A Catalina's granite with a lot of mica in it. And those back there are collected sands from the deserts of Australia. I haven't made any pigment from those yet. And then these are my purchased pigments from England: Clearwell Caves, Florence Printmakers, which is a famous iron mine, and then made pigments, manganese blue and vermilion from Cornelison's in London. So you can see just some of the many different hues you can get collecting pigments. So, but let's head over, and I'm going to start processing these and see what I get. All right, here we are at the grinding station. This is a burr grinder I got on eBay for about $20. You want the burr grinders set on extra fine, and then just turn it on, and because sometimes you got to help it down into the hopper, and you might have to run this through a couple of times to get enough fine pigment for sifting. And that's looking really good. Now here I'm using my set of Talisman sieves, which are created for the pottery industry, for people who sift their own glazes. And I go from 40 to 200 mesh. So I've put the pigment in the top, and it's sifting down through the different mesh sizes. The final size is approximately, it's going to be between 100 and 200 microns. You can see the dust there. This is why we use dust masks. You don't want to be inhaling this. And there we have our pigment ready to do a final push through the finest sieve. So this will get me down to about 100 microns, which is good for making handmade paint. Speed it up a little bit there, and just checking the, yep, see, it's come through. We've got a good amount of pigment there. So I'm going to collect that. You know, that's enough for a couple of half pans, maybe a full pan of paint, which lasts a long time. And then you just keep sifting, sifting, sifting. Here we are in the studio. I've got my mulling set up, so I'm getting ready to mold that pigment that we just finished grinding and sifting. So I have my muller, the glass muller. I have a burnished piece of tempered glass that's frosted on the top to help increase the friction as we bind the binder, literally, to the pigment. I have my binder and humectant pre-mixed. This is gum arabic and honey, which is my preferred, and distilled water, and a paintbrush and water for testing my pigment when I get it mulled to the point where I want to see how it's looking. So I also have a palette knife, which is used for scraping up, you'll see, as we process the pigment. And my gloves. So I think we're ready to get started and mull some pigment, which, depending on the pigment, takes anywhere from 10 minutes to a whole hour. It just depends on the size of the particles and how long it takes the binder to bind to the pigment. You are not changing the size of the pigment particles. You're not crushing it. You are literally combining all the binder materials with the pigment so that it's a nice, even solution. So let's get started.